Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Troy City Council. The special finance meeting, the date is April 24th, and it's 6 p.m. Please rise for the Councilmember Hume. Thank you. Councilmember Brasner.
Here.
Councilmember McLaren. Councilmember Vera.
Present.
Councilmember Sorienta.
Here.
Councilmember Casey. And I'm here as well for President Steele. All present and accounted for. Our agenda this evening includes two ordinances, several resolutions, and at this point, if there's anyone who wishes to speak on any item on the agenda, this is your opportunity to please come forward as part of the public forum. I might have to turn the mic over here.
Good evening. My name is James Rath. I live at 398 William Street in South Troy. Here tonight as a resident and as the executive director of Capital Streets. We're an advocacy organization pushing for more walkable.
James, I'm sorry. That is you have to really get it right close to your mouth for it to be effective.
Right.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Is it now? I'm usually on that side telling people that.
So you're familiar with this audio visual.
I'm familiar.
Yeah. If you just be patient, we'll get some more batteries and hopefully we'll be up and running.
Also used to saying that.
We have ignition.
Yeah, thank you. For those not getting the context, I'm on the city planning commission, so often sitting, or Katie sitting, saying, put your face into the microphone. But as I was saying, I'm the executive director of an advocacy organization called Capital Streets. We push for more walkable, bike-friendly, transit-oriented communities throughout the capital region. I'm also a former city planner for the city of Troy. I wrote the grant for the Route 2 improvement project, which is on here is number 75, the for Congress and Ferry Street, essentially. Back in 2018 was one of the first things that I worked on. I don't think people necessarily thought we were going to get that grant, but we did. It was for like $3 or $4 million for this huge project to have large sweeping changes in the downtown corridor. So across Congress and Ferry from the bridge and tunnel to where they meet up near like 13th Street is the name. So dead end street up there. When I wrote that grant, things have changed essentially since I wrote that grant. You know, there was the Congress Street Bridge study that was ongoing, and I know that the city went back to CRTC to amend the award to try to incorporate some of those changes as well. And I suspect that this could be a really amazing project still. I still think it's something that Capital Street and many residents would support. But the issue and the reason that I'm here speaking about this is that we don't actually know what's happening with the project. My organization and several other community members have been asking the city for more transparency, to have a public meeting on the project, to discuss the progress and the design and where things are moving. We did have one advisory committee meeting, which I was present for back in, I believe, early December. We learned about a couple different alternatives that the city was entertaining, but we didn't really get much more than that. So we again at that point asked for a public meeting, and we have not had one since, or anyone on this project since 2018. So, here today asking the city council to demand more transparency in the process, from the planning department and others who are involved in it. I know that there are several consultant teams, well, there's one consultant team and several consultants that are working on the project. Some of which who are very skilled and talented and capable of creating a really robust and transformative plan, much like the one that I imagined for the project. So, thank you.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Stephen Maples, 92 Idaho. I'm a transportation planner by training, and I actually work for the Transportation Council. Tonight I'm here in my personal capacity, and basically to just underscore a little bit more of what James was saying, that public participation is what I do, is what I work on. And for such a transformative, a project that has such transformative potential, having some public input into this process is absolutely critical. So it just concerns me that we're about to bond out a pretty large amount of money without having that public input. So I also understand the vagaries and the complications of getting financing lined up. So I am not here asking the council to necessarily table or vote down this resolution, but I am saying we should entertain that possibility that if we don't have that public input on a project that has such potential, that we should entertain and we should take that seriously. And at the very least, as James was saying, we should definitely have that transparency. I know that there's a lot of moving parts to this project. It's expanded, so I totally understand that the complications that may be involved here. But I'm just asking, my ask to the council will just consider what we're about to do here, and consider whatever powers that you have to ensure that we have that transparency and we have that public participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on any item on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move forward with ordinance 20, ordinance transferring funds within the 2024 ARPA. That's ARPA, all caps, funds for peak ambulance. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan, second. Councilmember Soriento. Discussion on the resolution.
Council President.
Councilmember Casey.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that it's great that we found a way to fund again this ambulance for peak times with the almost ridiculous turnover times at the ER and the massive volume of calls that we get now in the city of Troy. We're finding there's several rigs where they get off of a fire engine or get off of a truck and man an ambulance, and those pieces of apparatus are unavailable. And to have a fire engine or a ladder truck not available for many hours in a day is a very, very dangerous situation. It's something we have to deal with at some point in the future. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I just want to say I'm glad that we're funding this third ambulance again. Thank you.
Sorry. I don't see Philip here. Oh, he's there. He's hiding. He's hiding.
I just wonder, peak ambulance is a new term to me, as a new member of the council. And I do have a better understanding now after speaking to people over the last couple of days, but, it says for the next several months, this amount would fund it.
Correct.
And how, like, are we gonna get here?
Well, before she gets to that, I believe her question is financial
Okay.
first, and then we can get into
But
the,
I would love.
yeah, we want to hear more.
Yeah, just the explanation, I appreciate it. Yeah, so I guess I'm just. So if we're moving funds now to cover several months, is that going to get us through the year?
It is not. So, we decided to just do the 300, I'm sorry. Yeah, about the 313 currently, to get us probably through the end of summer. And then we're gonna probably, our goal is to actually fund this, not just through the end of this year, but also through next year and possibly the year after. But we also need to see how much funding we have left with the ARPA. And last week when we talked to you guys, we still were in the process of making sure that the funds that we've already obligated to some of the other recipients were actually gonna be, utilized by the end of this year and or within the next 2 years, to be able to finish the project. So by the end of summer, we'll have a better idea of some of those projects, whether they're gonna be continuing or not, and then we'll be able to know what more funding we could actually use for the peak ambulance, and if we can fund it, how further more we can fund it in the future.
And so that might become a budget item then, that, that it would be fully funded in the budget rather than having to move things around. So is that the plan?
Well, ARPA is not really part of the official, it's not like. It's part of the budget, but it's not like, we've already gotten the money, we already have it set aside in various funds. So it's not more budgeting at this point, it's transferring
Okay.
from project to project. So at this point, we wouldn't really be budgeting, we would be transferring from projects that would be. Either we've concluded that are not gonna be able to be finished by the 2026 deadline. And so therefore, we're gonna scrap the project or, other ways that we're gonna try to move the funds based on that analysis at the end of summer.
Okay, thank you.
Dylan, while you're there, excuse me, Chief, but while he's there, can you explain, the original ARPA allocation was 300,000 for peak ambulance, correct?
557.
Okay, so, oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong line. Okay, so how much have we spent thus far?
So the 557 actually was part of this year and last year's. So we've actually spent over the 557. We're actually in the red with that account right now. So we're funding it for to make sure it's out of the red and also to complete it. So right now it's about 70,000 over budget. And so we're accommodating that with the 313 and then the 230 for the rest of the year, 240 we'll have for the rest of the remaining time until we have to do a transfer at the end of summer, like I said.
So the original allocation was 870, or was it 1 million?
So actually, technically, it was about 1.5 million, but we did it over separate years. So the 2022 year first got it, and that was about 2021 got it at the end of their year, and then 2022 also got some. And so that money had already been depleted completely. The project is actually done for 2022. 2023 came, and that was when the 557 came in. And there was actually a little bit left over from the 2022 year. So we added that and it was about 680,000 for 2023. We spent about 600 in 2023. We had about 80,000 at the beginning of this year. We've already depleted the 80,000. We've already depleted 70,000 on top of that. And now we're funding again that slide.
So last year peak ambulance was, how much was spent on that? You said 600,000?
Correct.
And this year we spent about 150, which would be the 80. And you said it's the account's negative 70,000.
Yeah, correct. And I just want to make sure you guys know that 557 is not what was budgeted just for this year. It was budgeted for the line for last year and this year. And that didn't include the rollover from 2022. So that was just the budget that was there that we allocated to that fund for that year. And then we.
So they're ARPA account numbers, so they're slightly different than the yearly budget.
Correct.
I see that the fire staffing study the original budget was 300,000. We're transferring most of those monies out of the account. Are we currently under contract for that study? Is that why we're doing?
Correct. So when we did the study, when we first got and the fire chief, I think, can talk more about it, but, I talked to him about it because I wanted to see what was going on with that line, because there was only there was 300,000 allocated. And there was 665.70 about contracted. So I wanted to know if that was the full amount for that study. And the chief confirmed that that would be the full amount needed for the study. I left an extra like 5 to 10 grand in case the study went over a little bit, just in case, but I, made sure that there was still money left in the line to accommodate the study once it's complete. But we already have a contract out with a specific amount.
And the same thing then for the garbage barrels. We had earmarked $1 million. We've gone through that program. The money's being transferred out or what's left over from that program.
Actually, the garbage barrels have already been completed. The project's done. So we've gotten all the barrels and it came under the $1 million. It was about 800 or 912,000 or something like that.
That's the remaining.
And the
money.
remaining monies that I'm transferring is what I'm using.
Any other questions for Dylan while he's at the mic? Thank you, Dylan.
You're welcome.
Chief, you're up. It's your turn.
Good evening. I just didn't know if you wanted some clarification on what the peak ambulance is.
It would be helpful. We've got a
Okay.
lot of new members.
Yeah, so the city of Troy, our minimum staffing, we have 3 ambulances. We have Medic 1, which is up in Lansingburg, Medic 2, which is up on Boughton Road, Station 2, and Medic 4, which is downtown at headquarters. That's our minimum staff, or that is our regular staffing for ambulances. Medic 1, you've heard the term jumps with truck 1. So when Medic 1 is off duty, when Medic 1 is out on a call, truck 1 is off duty. When truck 1's on call, Medic 1's off duty. Same thing goes for Medic 2 up in Boughton Road. When Medic 2 is out on a call, engine 2 is off duty. When the engine's out on a call, the medic is off duty. So with the increased call volume and the ARPA funds that are available, a couple years ago with the administration, we decided to put an extra ambulance on from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, and we turned it to peak ambulance. So that is funded specifically through the ARPA funds. And we funded it last year with the previous administration. At the end of last year, it was not included in it. We were hoping to get it in the budget. It was not included in the budget. So they said they would fund it through the ARPA funds. There would just have to be some balance transfers, approximately 10 to 12 weeks into the year to get that done. And that's where we are. So this is going to fund Medic 3. It's the peak ambulance through that time period from 8 in the morning till 8 at night.
Councilman, quick.
Chief, do you anticipate now that peak ambulance is in operation? Is that ever, can you ever do without that now? I mean, I know that you're still very.
We're very busy.
So that's
We're a
gonna be-
busy department.
Yeah.
The study that we referred to.
Yeah.
That should be coming out June, July, so we're, Medic 3 is a needed piece of apparatus. I don't foresee, because what we do with that, the way we run that is we use Medic 2, which is up at Boughton Road, as a last resort. Medic 3 answers all the calls that Medic 2 would. The only time Medic 2 really rolls out the door is if there was no other ambulance available. So we try to keep that engine company on duty. It's huge. It's not just for call volume, but being able to do some training, right? It gives us a little leeway with training because we're so busy. We really don't. The companies do a very good job at training, but we don't get to do the training like we used to because we're so busy. Companies are in and out. They can't come off duty. So having an extra rig available, it's not just response times. It's not just call volumes. It's training. It's a multitude of things. So yeah, it's a very needed piece of
So
equipment.
eventually when ARPA runs out.
I would hope to
we're
be
gonna
able
need
to fund that.
Yeah, and I mean, this is really kind of off the topic, but do you anticipate that getting even worse? I know, Eric Bush has been very outspoken about the American thing.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say. It's not just one thing,
Yeah.
right? It's, that over the years, our call volume, goes up a couple hundred here, a couple hundred there. That's a little grain of salt each year, right? And eventually that scale is going to tip. So yes, the closing of Burdette Care, that's just another grain of salt in the, in and of itself, is it a big deal? I mean, we could deal with it, but in combination with everything else, it's huge.
Thank you.
Chief, you just on the study, you said it will be completed?
I would
June,
assume
July?
they estimated
And
it would take 6 months to complete. Yeah, I think it was funded back in like November. Did we talk with them? We were kind of waiting for the kind of like the change of administration. They didn't want to do too much, with another administration coming in. So it really kind of, the previous administration, and the current administration met at the end of December with them, and that was really kind of the kickoff. So I would anticipate, they've been pretty solid on their timelines. So they said approximately 6 months. I would estimate end of June, beginning of July, somewhere in that, maybe mid-July. I'm not 100% sure.
thank you.
It's
very
somewhere.
much. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
I just said real quick, is anything getting better with the turnover times at the hospitals? Anything? Same?
Hard to
No.
say, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's probably not. It's hit and miss, right? It's hit and miss.
So
Good.
Thank you.
Very much, Chief.
I just want to say, Councilperson Steele,
Okay.
Council President Steele, I just want to say, we talk about these calls, and I had thought about this, that between recently completed projects under construction and ones that are in the planning process, just the large projects at Troy, we're looking at 1,400 new units in the city of Troy. And we talk about building more housing. The manning stayed the same. At some point, something is, either we're gonna have to change the way we do it, or something's gonna have to break as far as the manning numbers, especially with this unprecedented wait times, which I feel are scandalous at these hospitals. Something has to change. Thank you.
Any other comments? Let's vote on the ordinance. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 20, adopted unanimously. Ordinance 21, ordinance transferring funds within the 2024 ARPA funds for emergency relief. Councilmember Casey has requested the administration. Is a motion?
Oh.
Councilmember Keel, second?
Second.
Councilmember Brosnan, discussion on the resolution or the ordinance.
Council President.
Councilman Barrett.
I was just curious how much of the demolition line item has been marked or spent so far?
So for the demolition line, we've spent about 600,000 of the 2 million.
Been spent. That's out the door dollars.
That's out the door now.
Okay, and have any additional funds been earmarked?
I'm sorry,
Like, are we under contract?
Oh, yeah, so we are still under contract, so we have, 1 million is completely, contracted for, the other million has not been touched yet. So we've spent 600, so it's like, it was.
Oh, I don't mean in the sense of, set aside from ARPA.
No, that's what I mean. So within ARPA, we did, and again, I don't understand exactly why the situation occurred, but there's 2 ARPA lines for demolitions. So both of them are funded at 1 million apiece. So the first one is the one that's been earmarked and has already been contracted for the full 1 million, but only 600K has been spent, so there's 400 left in that one. Then there's the other 1 million line that hasn't been touched yet, and that's the one that I'm taking the 500 from.
And then the emergency relief, that's Eddie's Lane Pump Station, Spring Ave Landslide. Are there any other?
And the winter ice storm that we had, with all
Okay,
the
so
trees
those
that
are,
were
those
down.
are the 3 items that are being paid for under that account.
Correct.
Does $500,000 cover that? Is there gonna be a need for additional transfers? Is that entire amount required for those 3 projects? Or is there gonna be something left over in that account?
So that's what we're starting with right now. We probably will need to increase it depending on the amounts that are coming in, so let's just look at the landslide. The landslide, when we first looked at it, we were estimating about 250. And now it's coming in closer to 354, just based on the work that needs to actually be done for it. So, but again, that's just gonna be covering the first portion of that, moving forward. And then the other two, we actually haven't started the, process yet, so I don't know the full amount. To my guesstimate, it's gonna probably be closer to 750. Yeah, total.
Any other questions for you? Comments? Let's vote on the ordinance. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 21 is adopted. Resolution 58. Resolution urging passage of Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, S 4246B, A 5322B, Council President Steele. We have a motion by Councilmember McLaren, second.
Second.
Councilmember Farrow. Discussion on the resolution.
Council President,
Councilmember Brosnan.
I read through it and there was a couple things that concerned me. It seems as if though it's gonna really hinder manufacturing jobs in New York. Because you're getting fined for both manufacturing and putting the product on the shelf. So it would make businesses inclined to move to Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and bordering states. That way it would cost less money for them. It forces the businesses to pay for the initial study from New York State and themselves. That's kind of strange to me. If you're forcing someone to do something, you shouldn't force them to put the entire bill, especially since it's annual after that. It doesn't say it will, but it kind of forces a new role for companies to provide annual reports about shipping and containers used. It cuts out lobbying, which is a weird thing to see in a bill randomly. I don't like lobbying, but it's weird to see it there. Then it exempts local governments from following the same guideline. I don't like that. If you're gonna force companies to do it, government should do it too. Then it doesn't lay out a clear guideline for breaking the rules. It just says they'll be fined, but it doesn't specify what the fines would be, who sets the fines, or who's coming up with the rules to follow.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Council President.
Councilmember Kennedy?
Well, I've said before, and I said last week that I have seen things like this before, and I don't know who suggested we look at it. I wasn't sure. Somebody said it might be the assemblyman. I'm not sure. But what I said is, you know, just today, I got a call for a dead cat, need for a brush truck, problem with street cleaning, and a veterans banner that fell. And I think back to when the woman whose name escapes me, I'm sure she knows, represented District 3. And she said during a meeting, she really thought being on the council was about bigger things, but instead, and I'm not quoting her, you know, it's about garbage and crime and things like that. And I think that's what we're here for. And if we start where Irene might care about a state bill as criminal justice, I may care about something about, well, Bill might care about housing. And then we're going to get caught up in spending time, and I spent time researching about this and made phone calls and looked it up. And we're going to be spending our time on doing that as opposed to the really important things in Troy, you know, the budget, the crime, moving the city forward. You know, with these future mandates, I always wonder because we have, you know, we've had mandates in the state for EVs, cars. We've had mandates for energy, none of which are going to meet their goals. None. Solar and wind are being fought on every front in this state, God knows why. So I think about, there is a market full of plastics right now, and that's because it extends shelf life and it's about food safety. Now, why I'd like to eliminate plastic, is the alternative going to be better? Do we know what it is? Or are we going to have a problem with shelf life and food safety? Also, it being specific just to the state, now factories have to retool and do different procedures and different packaging just for this state, which is of course going to drive up. So, like I said, this bill actually, in different forms, has been kicked around for the last few years. It has never made it to the floor. And I've been told it probably won't reach the floor again. And saying that with this legislature, who's passed some pretty extreme measures in the last few years, I'm surprised. But even with this legislature, it hasn't made out of committee. So again, its third version now, it's being kicked back to another committee, and it probably won't even see the floor again. So that says a lot, really, in a state where we've passed some really interesting legislation. So I'd like to just say, respectfully, I'd just like to stick to Troy and Troy's problems, which we have many. I could go on and on about, my neighborhood and the neighborhoods I represent. We get crime and stabbings and everything, and I'd really like to keep my focus on Troy, respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I love Troy. Also want to spend my time on Troy. But I think the fact that Earth Day 2024 was the theme of it was plastic. There needs to be, I feel like there needs to be more legislation around plastic. When carbon emissions was first proposed to be reduced, since that happened, we've reduced them by 90%. We have to start somewhere. And I know this has been kicking around for a while, and I think because it's been tweaked and I guess I'm at the point where I feel like this is a chance for us to help the state of New York put us on the map as far as being front runners in trying to combat the problem of plastic. I think it's not going to be perfect. There will be some bumps in the road. And I think that as far as knowing whether or not it will be better, we really aren't ever going to know that until it's tried, I think. But I also know that a lot of research has gone into it. It's not just a kind of a fly by the seat of your pants resolution. So as far as I'm concerned, my own personal opinion, I would support this because I think that Troy is part of planet Earth and we need to do our part.
Thank you. Councilmember Casey, I can answer a couple of your questions. What motivated this was I attended the Bob Doherty Memorial Lecture Sunday at the UAlbany Public School of Health, and the keynote speaker was Judith Enck, a former DEC commissioner, who spoke very eloquently, very convincingly about our personal responsibility to reduce plastics And there are ways to do it. I'm drinking my water out of a bottle that was actually distributed at that event. I'd never seen one before. I won't be drinking water out of plastic ever again, based on the fact that it's very easy. It's a matter of changing our habits. And so I was encouraged by her, not only her passion, but the facts that she presented. And we would be one of, I think, 6 other states who have done this and done it successfully. The closest, I believe, being Maine. So we're not charting new waters. It's already been done, and successfully. I think that I would respectfully disagree that our role as elected officials does involve conveying our wishes to the next level of government. We did it previously, this body, and I believe you co-sponsored the resolution encouraging increase in AIM funding. And as a result, Troy will be receiving 1.425 million this year. Our wishes were heard at the state level, and we can be grateful for that. So I do feel that this is appropriate. I think we need, as local officials, to take steps to reduce the waste stream, and plastics is the, take a look at our oceans right now. The waste, the plastic that washes up on our beaches. We're not going to change the world with this resolution, but we can speak our mind, and we can convey to our elected assemblymen and senators how we feel about it. So I would, respectfully encourage you to consider supporting this resolution. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Resolution 68 is defeated. Resolution 73, resolution proclaiming the month of May 2024 as Plant More May in the city of Berlin, New York. Councilmember Soriencho. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan, second.
Second.
Councilman Vera. Discussion on the resolution.
Councilor Lucille. Since the day I met Irene Soriano, I've heard about more about Plant More May than any person on this earth. I like the idea, and she, for numerous reasons, respectfully didn't like the no. And she said pollination. I'll let her talk about this, and I thought it was a beautification thing also. And being out there on Earth Day, working with Osgood and Stowe Hill groups this weekend, they had talked about planting and flowers and gardens, and it was just nice. And you think about how good it's going to look in the summer. And on the other end, both groups talked to me extensively about more mowing. So, thank you.
Council President,
Councilmember Soriencho.
actually really excited about this resolution. It is, with planning more in May, it's, not only going to, increase, pollination, but it's also going to beautify our city. And, potentially I bring up our property value too. But I'm just really, really excited about this. It's going to be an expensive bill for my husband, but I don't care. It's going to really beautify the city, and it's going to attract more pollination. So I did have to work on that resolution when I spoke to an expert about it. Where we have to include, it's the native plant.
But there are some plants that, do nothing for pollination. And, so I want to thank Aaron, Councilmember Vera for sending me a list. I did send it. Did send it to my friend, to see if that, if the list of those trees and shrubs, would increase that pollination. And, I'm just really excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 73 is carried. Resolution 75. Bond resolution of the city of Troy, New York, authorizing the issuance of 1.308 million additional zero bonds to finance the reconstruction of streets in the city, including Congress Street and Ferry Street corridor improvements. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
discussion on the resolution.
Council President.
Councilman Brosnan.
So the new planner just got in. Let's give him a little bit of time before we call the next meeting for the planning. Moving forward, it's gonna come up soon. That way everyone can see the transparency process coming through. Probably early next month.
Then why are we bonding out? If we haven't had the meeting necessary,
Because
For
we have
this.
had the meetings. Didn't too. This is transparency on transparency. There was a meeting in 2018 before the money was funded, before the money was issued. We're gonna have another meeting. That way people can speak before the project is finished. While we have the money to do the project. Council President.
let me see if there's any other questions. Anyone else have questions?
Council President.
Councilmember Rivera.
What is the $1.3 million?
So that's includes, that's for design for, 3 different elements on this project: street repair, construction, intersection of River Street and Ferry and tunnel rehab. Kind of going off of this was, project that was already started. This is a supplemental added onto that to then further this project. Where originally it was gonna be just relocating some roadway space. Now we're getting involved in the River and Ferry intersection by the Taylor site, the tunnel, so. It is an 80-20 match as well, reimbursed. And I did just want to point out as well, just with some of the public's comments, we're definitely planning on having public meetings, even outside of Councilman Brosnan. Planning meeting is something that we are gonna do with every big project as it comes up, but this isn't necessarily a new project. It is a variation of one that was already started, so it supplements a project that the public has, like, already been noted, been talking about since 20.
So has the TIP been amended for these additional funds?
Yes, the supplemental.
And this is the total of just over $2 million. That's just for the draft design report.
So 1.3, are you?
It's 1.3 in addition to 700.
Correct, yes,
So
that is
2
for the
million?
design and, yes, the,
So is this,
this is a different for those other funds.
is this just for the draft design report, or is this for final design?
This is for also phase 2 of it, so it is for final, including those additional elements that I just said.
Well, until we have a draft design report, how would we know what the final engineering costs are gonna be?
That's what this phase of it is, that's what this part of the phase is, getting to the final document.
So the TIP has been amended then to include these additional funds? Is there somebody from the planning department that can confirm that? Because I just looked it up the other day and it hasn't been.
Okay, well, unfortunately, our planning commissioner couldn't be here today. I can get you more information on it.
So a draft report has not been submitted.
So the draft report for, are you talking about referring to the original phase of the project or
Yeah, I'm referring to the, correct, the Congress
phase
Ferry
one of it?
project.
For,
Yeah.
because this is the phase two, the supplemental, those additional
Yeah, I understand, but,
elements of it.
right. Originally, these were 3 separate projects. They were all rolled together. The funding for them all rolled together for draft design is 700,000.
Mhm.
So why do we need the additional 1.3 million? I guess, have you guys met with the consultant?
That is, so yes, our planning department has, and that's what I'm, this is to, the original part, the scope of it was to relocating roadway space, where this is now including more elements to it than the original,
You
from my
guys,
understanding.
you guys have a revised contract, draft contract from the consultant?
Correct. That's what I'm referring to as a supplemental, so I apologize.
Do you have a copy of it?
I can get you one, yes,
Would you provide that to all members of the council?
most certainly.
Council President.
Yeah.
Councilmember Clark?
So, again, I'm new to bonding. Is it customary to bond before, so so the public portion of this, is this going to be to get input, or is it kind of going to be to tell people what the design is going to look like?
There's still definitely, we can still do input, like it was already said, since the project was started in 2018, it's been a little bit, it's time for a refresher of it. But this phase of it, and the reason that we're bonding for it, again, it is an 80-20 reimbursement. We don't want to jeopardize future funding to finalize the complete construction of the process. So that's where this came in, and going back to that supplemental agreement to add in these additional elements, like the intersection of River Street and Ferry, the tunnel rehab.
So is it possible, based on public input, that the plans might be tweaked and then this amount would have to be looked at again?
So I don't think that anything would actually change this part of the funding. I think elements, just like a lot of different projects, when there's public input, I don't think that any public input could drastically shift the cost of this project, and it won't be, we will be to realize the Congress Street, Ferry Street corridor and everything to go on there. I mean, it is going to require more funds, et cetera, but this is that stage. There's still time for public input as well. And this is again to get to this phase of the project, so that way we don't jeopardize any potential funding.
Thank you.
Could you expand on this future funding that you're referring to?
Well, I mean, to complete the project, of course, it's gonna require future funds. What that exact amount is, I don't have that. But, it's not something we'll be coming for the council for this year, like our previous time.
I think some of us are wondering about the timing of this. It does seem a little premature, and it certainly was rushed. And so just, what is the urgency?
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily that it's rushed, but I mean, keep in mind too, where some of these projects, we're talking about intersections down by the Taylor site that you're familiar with. I mean, there's motion in this corridor, so we can't get to that construction part of this until we do this. So that's really why I wouldn't call it a rush. It's just the next necessary step to realize the vision here for that corridor.
Well, we as a council were rushed to have this meeting tonight.
It's so,
So to me, with almost 24-hour, just about 24-hour notice, that's a rush.
so the only other thing, I mean, one in regard to the rush, as you know, this is your finance meeting, so you of course have a whole nother week, so does the public, to review these pieces of legislation before they're ultimately finally acted on at the regular meeting. So there is definitely enough time, and the reason that we're bringing this to you is normally, and I know you know from your years on the council, that there was no capital plan funded coming into 2024. So it's not a rush, it's just we're accounting for things that have now gone almost, or in April, so 4 or 5 months that ball could have started rolling 4 or 5 months ago. But so that's why we're doing this mid-year bonding for a lot of these different items. You know, these are project equipment and facilities that have been identified that are very necessary to go at this round of bonding. Otherwise, we wouldn't. There's another, you know, project, I know we discussed about it, not to, but the Riverwalk, for example, that's something that will eventually need some bonding, but you know, as our conversation, we're not there yet. That's why we didn't include it in this exact package. But for the Congress Street, Ferry Street project, you know, it's definitely necessary that we start moving forward. So again, we don't jeopardize it.
Council President.
Councilman Barry.
So the $2 million is to expand the scope of the existing contract for a draft design report with the current consultant.
Correct.
The draft design report for this project is going to cost the city $2 million.
For the design and engineering part of it. This
Final
supplemental,
engineering or the design report.
this is the design and the engineering, from my understanding. I can get you a clarification on that.
So the way,
You are-
the way it generally works is you prepare a design report for a project. The design report needs to consider at least 2 alternatives. Okay, generally one of them is do nothing. The other would be the project itself. Are these funds only being used for that task? Or are these funds for the future, once you've gotten through that process, the hard engineering on the project?
From my understanding, and I'll get you clarification on that.
Who's the consultant for this?
So this is Creighton Manning.
Okay, and they've submitted a revised contract for,
Supplement, yes, correct.
okay. And not for final.
Not, from my understanding is the design and engineering. I know you as an
Yeah,
engineer are
this
familiar
sounds like
familiar
the
with it.
final engineering on what would be, I mean, how much money does the city have for these projects for construction?
So we're not at that part of phase of the project.
No,
So
it's
that's why I
in
said
the-
we'd
it's
be
in the
coming
tip.
back in the
It's
future.
in the tip, right? The tip has preliminary design, final engineering, construction.
I have no problem from now until that regular meeting, getting a full breakdown of exactly everything that's going on with this project. Provide for the full.
It is for final, design and engineering. It's final design and engineering.
Okay, thank you.
I
And now
apologize.
knowing that for the final engineering, I feel like that's jumping the gun before additional public input in the draft design report has been published. That's where I was going with that. How do we know how much the final engineering is going to cost without knowing what alternative's been selected? We haven't gotten that far yet.
Sorry, yes, Councilman.
How do we have an estimate on what the final engineering is going to cost when we haven't even selected the alternative that we're going to design?
Well, that's what it's a preliminary design.
Right, so
Yeah.
this is well in advance of when these funds will be.
From my understanding, that's not, these funds are needed to continue this phase with the addition of these supplemental
Funds are
items.
not for this phase, they're for final engineering. We have not submitted a design report to DOT yet.
So maybe if this is, and I apologize if I was misunderstanding the question. If you're saying, are we far ahead, that are these funds necessarily, they're gonna be needed within time of when we go to bond for this, that's why it made sense to include them in this round of bonding. We're not, you know, say, we're not 6 or 7 months away from it, but we wouldn't be going to bond, when we would most likely be going to bond again. If that, I'm just,
Dylan, Mr. Spring, is it advantageous for us to bond for these funds now? Is there something, can you inform us on what the bond market is looking like right now? Is there a reason why we would want to bond for these funds now as opposed to when they're needed?
So, to my understanding, and this is just the conversation I had real quick with Randy when he requested this, is that this money is needed to move forward with the next part of the phases with the supplementals that were added to the contract. I don't know the exact reason why this needed to be done right now, but Randy was pretty adamant that this get on this bonding list for this year, so that he could start with, the process by the, third quarter of this year. Now, I don't know the exact details of the, reasoning why behind that. I probably should have asked. I apologize. I can't get that to you. But, as Seamus said, we can sit down with you at some point this week or next week, before the regular meeting with Randy, and he'll be able to give you a bunch more information on exactly why that needs to be done. But I apologize, I don't have that exact.
It's all right, it's not your job.
Well, and council member, I just think we're being advised by the consultants, our planning department, that this is the time to do. We wouldn't add it in the bonding if it wasn't. I understand it sounds like you have a different opinion, but
No,
that
but
is why.
I would absolutely advise you the same thing.
No, but our own planner, but our, no, that's not. Okay, okay, well, with all due respect, council member, this is done, the person that was pushing for this in the planning department is the same person that's been on this project since 2018 as well. So, I mean, we're not throwing around millions willy and nilly here. That's
I
not,
disagree.
we're all part of it. We're not also just giving into what our consultants, you
Yeah, I
were
don't
here
think
for a
the
while,
money will
you relied
ultimately
on many
affect-
consultants, you know how it works.
Deputy Mayor.
So,
please,
yeah.
let's-
I'm
I-
answering the council
I
member's
do
question.
not
Lower the-
agree that these monies will eventually be spent. What I'm having a hard time understanding is why we need funds. That's all.
Thank you.
So because we need it in this round of bonding, because we don't go to bond every month, as you know.
And if I may, you know, I know this is also your first bonding trip as a council member. Being on the council prior, great questions. Remember, this is the authorization to issue. What we're trying to do is get to the June issue in July. Speaking with bond counsel, speaking with the financial advisors who advise us, obviously, you know, when we do go to the bond market, we will need that because we don't want to have to go to the bond market in September, October. It's going to cost us 20 or 30 more K. So what this will allow us is to get through the next 6 months per Andrew Preshnick, who has been on this project from day one, preliminary design, engineering, get us through the next 6 months for this next phase. And then we'll come back to the council for the next phase come January, but we'll come in December for that next bond issue. So, and just to also, and I get it, I was on your side. One of the things we did do with the bonding, if you look in the capital plan, you'll see, you know, 6 million, for instance, what Seamus was saying for the Riverwalk. We took a step back instead of literally looking at the Riverwalk, not even in phases. We're not even ready to bond yet. So we took a step back from that one where potentially it might have been suggested to, all right, let's go into the first phase. Let's get the council to authorize the issuance of bonding. We decided, no, it's not time. So each project was honestly like thought through with not only staff, department heads, et cetera, consultants, but also our financial advisors and bond counsel to make sure we were not going to the bond market for more than what we actually need. Oh, and I do apologize. Andrew did get back to us. So 1.3 mil is inclusive of design for 3 elements. 1, street repair and construction. 2, intersection of River Street and Ferry. 3, tunnel rehab. Originally, the project was for design only for the first element, the street repair. Then the other 2 elements were added to the project. Combined, the preliminary design costs are 1.3 mil, which is the requested amount in the resolution.
Is this information that you can provide in advance of next week?
Absolutely. What I would also, if you want to sit down with Andrew and Randy, we feel free. Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Council President, Councilmember Nathar.
I just wondered if, and Ryan, I don't know, maybe you can jump in on this too. Is there a plan or can you estimate how long it will be before you have a public input session, you know, forum for the public to see it and weigh in on it?
We'll get the timetable for the engagement, okay? Perfect, yep. And, you know, as Seamus mentioned, the whole project, et cetera, but, you know, put aside, you know, Councilmember Brosnan's planning meeting. There's a whole timeline for the public engagement, et cetera. So, that's great, add to it, but there will be a whole timeline and we'll make sure we get that to the council.
And that will be, and that public input will happen before alternatives are selected.
Okay, Councilmember President, no, you're okay, okay. Bonding for the Riverwalk has been referenced, so I think this is a good time to share with the council and the public. I had asked earlier today, what's the plan for bonding for the year? How does this fit into the whole picture? And so if you would want to share that with us at this time, that would be helpful.
So that's why, like the mayor just referenced, that's why the Riverwalk was left off at this point. It's not exactly right there yet. It could get there. And we would come to the council back for bond. So it's not 100% clear if we would get there by the end of the year. That's why it was a possibility. Same with the lead replacement project as well. We also, another thing, Council President, too, that we felt pushed it a little bit down the road is that Riverwalk is waiting for seeker as well. So there's that part of it too.
What about some of the other projects that have been mentioned, the water treatment plant, the fire station in the Burg, City Hall? Where are we in this year's phasing of those projects?
So those projects won't require bonding this year. That's why they.
None at all. Thank you.
No, that potentially may not be accurate, only because, one monument, we're definitely not there yet, now that the budget is passed, and we know that the 19 mil is there for one monument. We are hopeful, to, hopefully come up with a conceptual plan, which obviously will, connect with the council when that time does come. If the governor's office and the folks who appropriate that money, John McDonald and folks, are open to potentially, you know, using that money for something other than what one monument was slated for, which was housing. You know, potentially, would we be in a position to bond? Because that will be reimbursement also. I mean, we all know the reason we have to bond, they come in 80-20, they come in 90-10, et cetera. We don't get the money right up front. It's just like chips, Marcaselli money, street paving money. That's why we're bonding here. You know, we will be reimbursed for a majority of these dollars, but saying that, one monument, definitely not there, might not be there by December. We'll see, potentially in November for next year, but we're just not there yet in terms of that project. What was the
Fire station,
the fire station? We will not need to bond because we have money in ARPA, which is slated. So the deputy mayor was absolutely correct enough to get that rolling. We are in the environmental phase 2. That is being remediated as we speak. It's anywhere from $80,000 to $100,000. When that is complete, we'll go to the next phase, which will be buying that property. The property will will purchase for approximately 300K. And that is also in the ARPA money. So we have ARPA money. The preliminary design for that, conceptual, I should say, has been done, but we have close to $1 million for the relocation of the fire station. So I envision us in November coming back to the council during the budget time to lay out a capital plan for the fire station, which would include bonding at some point, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Oh, and then, I apologize, the lead pipe replacement, we are pushing our bond council, to work with us. He is doing tremendous, research. Full disclosure, I guess something that surprised us, he is stating that Syracuse has not actually bonded for the lead pipe replacement yet. We did read an article, but we are being informed that that is not completely accurate. I, was surprised at that, but we'll see. But our bond council is looking into the legislation that was passed in the budget last year for the private lines for bonding, and we are pushing that lever. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? We'll take a slow roll on this one. Councilmember Keel?
Yeah, aye.
Councilmember Brosnan?
Aye.
Councilmember McLaren?
Aye.
Councilmember Vera?
Aye.
Councilmember Sargento?
Aye.
Councilmember Casey?
Aye.
And I am also moving it forward, but I think we have a lot of information that needs answers before we vote on it at our May meeting. So I look forward to receiving that before. But this is moved out of committee unanimously. Resolution 77, bond resolution of the city of Troy. No, resolution 76. It would help if I put my glasses.
I've done that.
Determining that proposed purchases of construction and maintenance equipment are type 2, that's a typo there, we need fixing. Type 2 actions for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Councilmember Casey and the request for the administration. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Vera is seconded by President. Discussion on resolution 76. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry, what was that?
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Unanimously adopted. Resolution 77, resolution is a bond resolution of the city of Troy, New York, authorizing the issuance of 850,000 serial bonds to finance the purchase of construction and maintenance equipment. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Soriento with a second by Councilmember Brosnan. Discussion on the resolution. Council President Steele. Councilmember McLaren.
What equipment is it that we're proposing? Construction and maintenance? Can you be more specific?
Yeah, for sure. So there are various equipment that is aged and beyond repair, and I can list these equipment for you as well. Rear loader, garbage truck, flusher truck, utility truck with lift gate, backhoe, and a Foley grinder. And like I said, they are very aged and spend a lot of resources with repairing them, and most of them we can't find parts for them. So when we do repair them, they break down very quickly afterwards.
Councilman Vera.
The backhoe for DPW, for DPU.
So that goes for DPU. This one that will be looking to replace is about 5 years old, but we would utilize this backhoe for DPW because we do not have one in our garage.
We don't have it out in the store.
And we need one badly.
Any other questions? Vote on the resolution, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 77 is adopted. Resolution 78, resolution determining that proposed purchase of police department vehicles is a type 2 action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration.
Motion. Second.
Councilmember Bradley, seconded by Councilmember Farrell. Discussion on the resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 78. Resolution 79, bond resolution of the city of Troy, New York, authorizing the issuance of 440,000 serial bonds to finance the purchase of police vehicles. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Floriento with a second by President. Discussion on the resolution.
Council President.
Councilmember Rivera.
How many vehicles would this purchase? Sorry, if it says it might list it. Is it 3 or 4?
I believe it's 2 marked and 2 unmarked. I believe it's 2 marked and 2 unmarked.
Oh, 4.
4.
Oh, there we go.
I believe it's 4. And are these replacing vehicles that are out of commission now? Is this addition?
I'm trying to have an ongoing rolling vehicle purchase instead of purchasing all at one time. What we found is when we buy a group of vehicles, we end up with like a dozen vehicles from 2010. They all go bad in 2015. So we're trying to buy them on a rolling basis.
Sorry, Chris.
Sorry. We're trying to buy them on a rolling basis so we don't end up having exceedingly large repair bills or a bunch of cars go down at the same time. So the vehicles we have right now will be replacing. What we do is the vehicles get modified or sent down. The marked vehicles start off in our patrol division where they get the most mileage put on them. When they get spaced out there, they go to community policing where they're not used as, I get in response mode as often. They're more just getting from point A to point B. They are still utilized in emergency, but they're not used to respond to calls like patrol division vehicles are.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution determining that proposed purchase of computer equipment is a type 2 action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan, second.
Second.
Councilmember Vera. Discussion on the resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 80 is adopted. Resolution 81, bond resolution of the city of Troy, New York, authorizing the issuance of $260,000 serial bond to finance the purchase of computer equipment. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. There's a motion. Councilmember Soriento, second.
Second.
Councilmember Brosnan. Discussion on the resolution.
Council President Steele,
Councilmember Casey.
I believe we have a person here that wants to fill us in. Love to hear it.
Right, and would you be able to make copies for all of us? Thank you.
Oh, geez.
I guess every company is different.
No, there are 4 copies. I tried to save some trees.
I would just, as a general comment, perhaps in the future, when we have items that we know we're purchasing, if we could identify what exactly we're purchasing. I know it's said in the body of the resolution, but it might be helpful to have it, further broken down and a little descriptive, information. I think that would be, going forward, would appreciate that. Councilmember Brosnan?
Yeah, most of the stuff was pretty standard. I had a couple of questions. They were answered before the meeting's called. This is gonna be installed here, and then able to move in the future? The racks and switches specifically?
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so, my name is Omid Yusuf, and I'm the new IT director.
I'm sorry, could you spell your name, please?
Sure, man. OMAID.
Thank you, welcome.
Thank you. So I've been only here for 5 weeks, and I pretty much drove to all our city sites that we do support with our IT needs. And the picture that I have presented, the first one with the yellow sticker, shows the vintage of our switches. That's the one that connects our internal network to, which gives access to all of our end user, like all our employees, to the network. Those are pretty outdated. They're in a really bad need to be replaced. They're vulnerable, and they're also, if they die, it could bring production down. It could bring, half the department down. So that's was one of my concern, and I talked to Mr. Spring. He understood the need for it. Usually, when these switches, they go beyond 6 to 7 years, they're recommended to be replaced because there's no newer model out there, newer software, newer updates out for them. The other picture is also from one of our departments that is using a very old switch. They're so old that we cannot even connect to them to pull the configuration down. God forbid, if it goes down, it could affect the site, and it could be down for a couple of days until we can get it rebuilt. It's gonna be basically shooting in the dark, kind of, to see like if the servers are gonna be able to connect, because I don't have the configuration and I can get to it. So that's another scenario. The third one is the police department. They are currently using, the picture below shows you, they have only one server, which is a VM server, and it hosts 7 servers, like 7 VM servers in that one host. My recommendation is to build a cluster for them. The top picture would show you that we need to have 2 servers for them and a data store, so it can have redundancy and high availability. The police department is a 24/7 operation. If that server, the current environment, it goes down, it would affect their operation. They won't be able to do any of their job with investigations or arrests or whatever needs to be done. So it's very critical. I personally feel like if we follow that first recommendation, I've been working with Dell, and they have provided me a couple quotes, and I am pretty good with VMware, and I do all the work. That would save us money from consultant and professional services, so we will be saving a lot of money on that aspect of it. So we then just need to get the hardware and the licenses, and I will be able to implement that system for the PD and get them up and running and get them on a more redundant and high available system, which will make their job pretty easy. It will be much faster and secure.
Thank you.
I have another question for you. I noticed that the Cat 6 isn't mapped very well as you're going through. Do you have the equipment to map what's going in?
So it's gonna be in the server rack. So all we need to do is put a couple new switches in the rack with those with the new infrastructure. So we don't really need to run any the longer cables. So it will be probably more sub 50 people.
All right, thank you.
Council President.
I just want to know if we had a timeline for any of this stuff.
Yeah, so, I work with Dell, but I've been actually working with them since I got here. Because we are a Dell shop, everything has been Dell, so I don't wanna change anything. I wanna keep, maintaining that relationship with Dell, so, they have a system called Live Optics. They ran that system for 48 hours. They built all the data for our network on how much resources we need. And their recommendation was also that 2 server, structure for the PD. Once that is completed, then we will probably move forward with the other ones. We are looking possibly for a quote next week. And once I get the quote, then we can, uh, order the equipment, and hopefully 2 months or probably less than that. And that's because the PD is a 24/7 operation, so it's gonna be kind of hard to work on their schedule. If it was one of a regular department, which was this 8 hour, would have been like possibly 1 to 2 weeks.
Thank you. Councilman Farrow.
I see desktops and laptops are included. Is any of this equipment for end users?
Yes, sir, the desktop laptops are majority end users, so, we currently have a mixed bag of, workstations and laptops. We have, Lenovo, which I feel like it's, we shouldn't be using Lenovo as it's manufactured by China, as a Chinese company, so we shouldn't be really using it in the government. So, that's my personal view. HPs we have, they're pretty outdated, so we are currently buying a lot of Dell products. We have been buying Dell products, so, if we do, go ahead and order more, desktops and laptops, I would say probably within the next year and a half, it will bring everybody to the current version, and we will be able to, implement, Windows 11, which is the, most current, operating system, for Microsoft, which is what we use here at the city, at the entire city.
Council President,
Councilman. Russell.
you're talking about the redundant racks for the police department, for the redundant servers. Is the existing power going to work for both, or are you gonna need a new, source of power there?
Yeah, so, they did have 2 servers there prior to, I think prior to 2024, one of them died. So they do have the power, availability. And, there are, council president and council member, there's a couple of other, items on my list, but fortunately, I don't feel comfortable mentioning those here in a public hearing because, of the nature of the issue. So if you would like to sit with me one by one, I would love to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Councilman,
Russell?
I have a.
No, I just wanted to make a comment. I appreciate your, you know, your knowledge and your, ability to do a lot of the work yourself to save the city some money. So I appreciate that.
Councilman Person.
President?
Councilmember Farrow.
I see the resolution that we just passed. It has an estimate of $250,000, whereas the resolution we're currently discussing has a price tag of $260,000. I would suggest that we go back to resolution 80 and it to 260 and take another vote.
I would question, is it 250 or 260? Is the question we have. $260? Okay. Well, let's finish our action on this and then we'll go back.
Respectfully, I think we have to finish the first action before we can finish. the second.
Oh, right, that's the secret, right, absolutely, yep. Okay, we're going to, any
I make a
questions?
motion to table resolution 81. Thank you.
I think we can just go back to, the seeker resolution 80. And, I would entertain a motion to amend,
Motion.
by Councilmember Guerra, seconded by Councilmember Brosnan. Going to amend 250 to 260. Right, correct. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? So the amendment is carried. Now on the amended seeker resolution number 80. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The amended resolution is adopted. Now we're back in 81. And is there any further comments, questions?
Council President, I just want to express and echo the comments from the council. We are so fortunate to have Brandon O'Made. Comes from the county, comes from Plug Power. This position obviously was very hard to fill. It was vacant for over a year and a half. And they were using a prior director of BIS, who now is with Bethlehem, making a whopping 6 figures, which I won't state. So we're just so fortunate to have Ovid, and he loves our city, and he just has been a wealth of knowledge. We are in the dark ages. Our backbone, our technology here, BIS needs a lot of TLC. So Omid is hopefully getting us up to speed. I said if it gets us to the 20th century, and then we'll work on the 21st. Thank you.
Very good. Yes, thank you. Okay, all in favor of resolution 81, please signify. Aye. Resolution, any were opposed? Resolution 81 is adopted. Resolution 82, resolution determining that proposed renovation of police department buildings is a type 2 action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. My motion. Okay, I'm going to say that was Councilman Keel with a second by Oriental. By close? Or was it? Well, I think he really wanted to move it forward. I was reading his mind, right? Right, Bill? Right. I woke him up is what I really did. That's okay. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution 82 is adopted. Resolution 83. Resolution, a bond resolution of the city of Troy, New York, authorizing the issuance of 280,000 serial bonds to finance police department building renovations. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Brazos. Second. Councilmember Soriento. Discussion on the resolution.
Council President.
Councilmember Vernon.
What's the proposal? Do we have an estimate? The whole,
We have our
standard question.
limping assistant chief.
I'm fine. Got it.
Have a seat, Chris.
Hello.
I'm sorry, what were you asking?
What renovations are being proposed? Has any design or estimates been prepared?
No, we haven't gotten into the design or estimates of it. These are rough numbers we've been running. One of the renovations is the females locker room. The building was last renovated, I want to say when I got hired. So we're going back 20 some odd years ago. We've hired many more females, and their room is kind of cramped. So we want to make sure, we want to be able to expand to accommodate our diverse department. That's one thing we want to do. Out at our range, become a nice training facility. There's no power out there. That restricts the amount of training we're allowed to do out there. Unfortunately, running power out there, when we looked at it 10 years ago, it was $35,000 from National Grid, with the city doing all the work. So with the cost of wire going up, the cost of labor going up, and everything else, we're figuring it's going to be about 60 grand by the time. One of the biggest obstacles we have in the police department is the building was 100 years old. It actually was occupied, they opened it in 1924. There has not been much expansion, and we actually lost some space when the court took over a whole second floor, which necessitated the administration building, but we haven't been able to gain any space back. One of the things we have done, we want to do,
we want to build an enclosure next to our, police garage. So we can have our vehicles that, we have to have ready there. And if we need them, we don't have to go in and clear snow off them, shove all past, plow, whatever else. We want them ready to go, where we go in, start them up, drive them to wherever we need to be. And you know better than most that, like this, I want to say carport, but it's not a carport, it's a vehicle protection area. That it's not going to be cheap, to build it to standards and, for the Northeast. We estimate that, do we have the, what am I? Around, okay, around 100,000. I would hope it'd be cheaper than that, but I've seen what, the costs have come in before, like our multi-use building. And the last thing we want to do is that multi-use building originally was planning to be, used for evidence and, the evidence technician can go process it inside the controlled environment. It's expanded greatly to the point now where we've, got mats and we have our defensive tactics, training open to our officers, so they're able to constantly train instead of just getting it once a year. We've opened it up to, ceremonial things because again, there's not a whole lot of room over there. When we did our, Assistant Police Academy, we turned it into a classroom. So we've adopted that now to be a classroom area too, plus the storage that we have. It's unfinished still. It's, the exterior looks great. The interior, it's got heat, HVAC, whole 9 yards. The walls are plywood. The cabling in there for some of the stuff, it wasn't really designed originally like we evolved to. So it's got to be some cabling, done in there also. And eventually we want to do something with the ceiling height to deal with that. So it's all just, again, dealing with the limited space that we have, trying to expand that and maximize it. The cameras that we need to put up are $15,000. That's a quote we did actually get. So again, we all know inflation and everything else, what was much cheaper 5 years ago is thrown price.
Excellent, thank you. Could we, get those estimates before the next meeting, whatever estimates that the administration has?
The rough estimates we put together, they are literally just us doing our own research. I haven't brought any companies in or doing anybody to,
Yeah, but if you have that.
I can go, yeah, absolutely, yep, perfect, no problem.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 83 is adopted. Resolution 84. Thank you, Assistant Chief. Thank you
Have a
for,
great night, thank you very much.
resolution determining that the proposed concrete repair at Central Fire Station is a type 2 action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. I have a motion.
Motion.
Member Brosnan. Second by Councilmember Keel. Discussion on the resolution.
Council President,
Councilmember Brosnan.
I don't know if you've seen the repairs we're speaking of. Oh. Okay. Never mind, talk about it.
On the resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 84 is adopted. Now to 85. Bond resolution of the city of Troy, New York, authorizing issuance of 75,000 serial bonds to finance the reconstruction of curbs, sidewalks, and gutters in the city, including concrete repair at the Central Fire Station. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan. Second.
Second.
Councilmember Vera. Discussion. Councilmember Brosnan.
I don't know if you've seen the repairs necessary. It's concrete falling off the building. It's really a safety issue. It's good that we're getting this stuff as soon as.
Councilmember Vera.
I agree. Yeah, the sidewalk in front of Central, they needed some repair for a while. It received some in recent years, but it just hasn't. I would, I guess, a question for the administration. Or more of a statement of consideration would be to include maintenance items like this in the 25 budget. When you guys get to that point,
Well,
I mean, I understand the need to bond for something like this because it's not on the budget, but repairs like this for fire stations are foreseeable, and I think a budget should be fine.
Council President. We fully agree. Obviously, you know, we have a budget that was passed in 23 for 24. So much of what you're seeing, capital plan, other items, obviously the computer equipment, that wasn't able to be wasn't foreseen last year. For this year, once again, you know, when I asked the department to sit down, please know, you know, they said, we have a capital plan, okay? Take a step back, the capital plan, we're already at the end of the first quarter, go back to the drawing board, do your priorities of the priorities. They came back, once again, go back to the drawing board, why do you need this? This was a good 4 weeks where the deputy mayor, Dylan, our comptroller, department heads really worked on a final, because, you know, I'm not going to come to the council, especially being on your side before, with items that are not critical. What you see in front of you are critical, and then obviously, you know, the planning project that's been underway since 2018 and finally ready for that next phase. But, you know, as Councilmember Vera said about this, that apron, I just can't believe it survived, as long as it has. That is a critical item. So saying that, I give credit, department heads know, yeah, you know, maybe they wanted 6 cars instead of 4, et cetera. We really whittled this down. So I give all of the folks that have been up here and the deputy mayor and comptroller, real credit for whittling this down. Thank you.
any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 85 is adopted. Resolution 86, resolution determining that proposed fire station carpet replacement is a type 2 action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Councilmember Casey has requested the administration. Have a motion?
Motion.
Oh, dear. I'll give it to Bill. Councilmember Keel, seconded by Councilmember Browson. Discussion on the resolution.
Council President.
We're on the speaker. All in favor? Resolution 86 is adopted. Resolution 87. Bond resolution of the city of Troy, New York, authorizing the issuance of $45,000 serial bond, finance the purchase, installation, and replacement of fire station carpet. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Browse, second. Councilmember Sinclair. Question on the resolution, Councilmember Browse.
Yeah, the carpets are original to the building, so a little renovation might not be the worst thing.
Council
Thank you.
President Steele.
Councilmember Casey.
Yeah, I just want to say, echo the same thing. I remember when the firehouse opened. It's got to be 30 years ago. I mean, this is the office. I mean, we have professionals coming in, different people to talk to, the chiefs, and you've got 30-year carpet. We need to put a better, you know, appearance to the place.
Councilmember McLaren.
Is this the central fire station carpet? I'm new to this whole thing. I'm, you know, trying to learn as I go. Is it like apples and oranges? Is that why they were not put together for one bond? Is that?
Exterior, interior.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And Council President, if I may.
Mayor.
So when Rich, invited me, and lo and behold, I hadn't been upstairs in, my gosh, since the firehouse was first built. Coincidentally, I was a council member, a little bit younger at that time, when the firehouse was first built. So Rich invited me, the chief, to an event upstairs, and I went up there. I honestly could not believe that carpet. It sounds very trivial. It smelled. It was dripping in at least a dozen different spots. And, you know, I turned to Rich, and it sounds very trivial. If we could find the 45K, I'm sure by the end of the year we may. If we find 45K, we're hoping not to have to, you know, issue this bond. I want you to know what you are doing is authorized in the bonding. So saying that, it does sound very trivial. It's not only appearance, it's a health concern from what I saw. When you're looking at 29-year-old carpet and the wear and tear, and, you know, there's offices up there. It was quite embarrassing, and I told the chief, you have to get new carpet. But anyway, he said, I've been trying, but, you know, we got to fix the apron. So lo and behold, you see the apron, carpet, some other things to me. Not picked out yet, you're welcome to come. Thank you, let's circle back.
We did attempt to replace it in 2020, thank COVID, we were scheduled to do that.
Right. Well, I'm glad to see it coming back, just as so many other things are after COVID. I have absolutely no dispute with the carpet. I do question the use of bonding for it. We worked and I'm glad to hear that, we worked very hard to get to where we are financially, and I know the previous administration had a policy try to stay over 200,000 for ticket items, and I think that's a good ballpark to be thinking about. Anything under that is really operational and should be budgeted for. So that's my 2 cents on that one. Anyone else have anything to say? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Council President, if I may,
Carried. And
if I may,
Mayor.
may I take it? Do know, that the fire, it will be bundled. I mean, you know, obviously these are individual bonds, but when they're issued, they will be bundled in a fashion. So, I mean, I get it. However, being obviously a quarter way into the budget, and since this budget is not ours, we have to at least, with any even big ticket item, it sounds minimal, but 45K, we saw it when the raises were proposed at the end of the year. There was proposals to go over the tax cap, so that tells me there's not a lot of wiggle room in the budget for ticket items like this. So we won't know, obviously, until we continue moving forward, but it's too hard to predict at this point, and some of these things need to happen. I totally get where you're coming from. We'll be in a different position next year. It'll be our budget, but, you know, for this year, obviously.
And just for the public's understanding, just because something is in the capital budget doesn't mean it has to be bonded. It could be paid for out of the existing budget. So, any other questions, comments? We have lots of information due. Maybe if we need to circle together and on what we need before the next meeting, when we actually act on these things, that would be probably advisable.
Yeah, and if there's, the council president, if there's, I know I noted a couple of things that were added, if there's anything not that we can discuss here, of course, reach out and we'll provide you.
Sounds good.
Whatever you're looking for.
Thank you. Yes. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, my. How do I pick that one? I'm gonna say, Councilmember Soriento and Councilmember McLaren. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. We're gonna go right into our special meeting. We have one item. One thing. Stand for the pledge of allegiance. Call the roll.
Here.
Councilmember Stan McLaren. Present. Councilmember Vera.
Present.
Councilmember Soriento. Here. Councilmember Casey.
Here.
Present. Thank you. We have one item as mentioned, on the agenda, but anyone who wishes to speak for or against this item is more than welcome to come forward at this time. Seeing none, we'll move right on.
Resolution,
Resolution 58.
Resolution 58, a resolution to designate the alley between 111th and 112th Street as Ernestine Way in honor of Ernestine Ross Hampton. Councilmember Brosnan has requested the administration.
Do I have a motion? Councilmember Soriento, second.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Keel. Discussion on the resolution. I have a question. Why did we need to do this in a special meeting tonight? And why could it not wait until our May meeting? Councilmember Rossi.
It's a good question. Because we had to have it done for the availability of the family and the person.
Is there an event coming up that you might want to share with us that many of us are in the dark about?
They don't have, but they are naming the street. Even?
Yeah, I think the mayor must have some inside information.
No inside, if- no inside information. The reason the administration is asking this, I was going to come up, but I figured I'd let Councilmember Brosnan answer it. May 1st is the date, so, I'll tell you why though, Gabrielle Basile, this is for her grandmother, so the alleyway is being designated for her grandmother. Gabrielle's mom is retiring April 30th, so they wanted to do it, before, May 2nd. I requested May 2nd. The family's coming in from out of town, so they're all coming in. May 1st will be the date. I do not have the time. When I get the time, the council will be informed.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep, thanks.
We're in the middle of a,
Just want to ask a question. It's 112, 113, for what?
yeah,
That's what 50 might.
okay.
It's an alley, it's the alleyway, between 5th and 6th.
Any other questions from the public or the council? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. You want to give us our vote?
7909, resolution 58 is passed.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Soriento is ready. Second by Councilmember McLaren. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.